Why not rank every episode?
Are you sure about that?
Lord have mercy on me. So let's fucking do this. See you on the other side. Hi, this video is very bloody long, and provided that I upload it on time.
Are you sure about that?
You all will be celebrating the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a show very close to my heart. Even after all these years, it's still probably my favourite TV show of all time. I even know many bits of plastic moulded into my favourite characters from the show, and plastic tubes with lights and sounds to resemble the Doctor's magic space wand. And this video is just going to be me celebrating my favourite show, so I thought why not do what no one else has done before, why not rank every episode. I won't be including the classic series because Lord have mercy on me, and I haven't seen all of them yet, so I can't. Maybe for the 100th anniversary I will, so let's fucking do this. Just a quick disclaimer, this video won't include any of the 60th anniversary special because they haven't aired when I'm writing this, so sorry I guess. However, I will review them when they come out and update the tier list if you really care where I place them. I will be using tiermaker.com because literally no other YouTuber does that. I will mention every time we enter a new tier and a brief overview of my thoughts, so from Rose to the Power of the Doctor, here is all 177 episodes with the revival round from worst to best. See you on the other side. Part 1. The Crimes Against Humanity. This is like the worst of the worst tier. These are absolute dogshit episodes. If I could give these episodes a less than a 1 out of 10, I would. They are absolutely worthless pieces of shit with nothing good in them. Number 177. The Timeless Children. Season 12, Episode 10. See, on paper, this isn't actually the worst episode ever, but it contains a single worst idea in the entire show's history. And there have been lots of those, trust me, just ask Sylvester McCoy. The Timeless Child concept ruins the Doctor's character on so many levels, and if you want more details about that, then there's many good YouTube videos going over it, but I don't really have time to do that today. Simply put, it kind of ruins the whole show really, but I guess I could move on from it. And as an episode and a finale to the series, it's just so cluttered and messy. Series 12 was pretty bad already, but this made it even worse and messes up so many of the storylines and just doesn't offer a conclusion. Though the Master killing Ishal was pretty funny, not gonna lie. There is one episode objectively worse, but for ruining one of my favourite fictional characters, the Timeless Children can fuck right off. Number 176. The Vanquishers, Season 13, Episode 6. Not only the worst finale in Doctor Who history, but perhaps in TV history. Flux was already a cluttered disaster, but this proved that there was no way they could turn it around well. Cringe, stupid and migraine-inducing, the Vanquished can go rot in Chris Chibnall's kid-infested basement. Number 175. Legend of the Sea Devils, 2022 Easter Special. Them effects though, yeah, it sucks for the same reason as the last one. Let's move on. Number 174. The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, 2011 Christmas Special. Can't remember a fucking thing that happens in this one. I'm pretty sure there's some big wooden people, but whatever. Number 173, The Last of the Time Lords, Series 3, Episode 13. Yeah, you probably weren't expecting to see Series 3 this low on here, but here we are. This episode is really abysmal. You've probably forgotten how bad it is since so long since you probably watched it. To be honest, Series 3 is one of the best seasons of the whole show, and this completely derails it, ruining a fantastic arc from the past 2 episodes. Just boring, awful, and floaty goblin space Jesus doctor. Need I say more? Part 2, The Terrible Tier. These episodes are all really, really bad, but they do have a few redeeming elements. For example, some cool monsters or some really cool scenes, lines of dialogue, character designs, character moments, or anything like that. Basically anything from a 2 out of 10 and above, because they do have some good elements, but they're overall, well, terrible. So let's just get into it. Number 172, 42, Series 3, Episode 7. This episode is like the warning signs for everything Chibs would eventually do to Doctor Who, because you have a Doctor who's constantly using the Sonic, is kind of really weirdly annoying, Martha's kind of discarded and almost dies, and the concept makes absolutely no sense, and it's really boring despite having a really fast pace. The Doctor is strangely vulnerable in this, and I do quite like that actually, and the red suit is seriously sweet, but it's just really boring even though it's so fast paced. It's kind of a strange phenomenon, but not really much to say on it, but it's so skippable. I don't think I've ever actually finished it. I've got 30 minutes in and given up. It's that kind of an episode, you know? Number 171, Sleep No More, Series 9, Episode 10. A failed BBC experiment that is literally borderline unwatchable. It's so hard to not get a headache or a migraine when watching this. It is so bad. The whole found footage idea does not work. Doctor Who does the Blair Witch Project. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. Doctor Who and horror, very good combination, but Doctor Who and the Blair Witch Project, borderline unwatchable, and just not particularly fun at all. Number 170, The Idiot's Lantern, Series 2, Episode 7. This is why I hate Rose, and why Series 2 is probably the weakest of the RTD era. To be honest, I think she's so annoying and tells the kid to go back to his domestically abusing father. I mean, come on guys, what's she even on about? Rose just... I hate Series 2 Rose so much, she's so insufferable. But other than that, it's just not a very good episode. It's kind of morally questionable as well. Although the villain's alright, but it's just nothing. Number 169. Nice. Arachnids in the UK. Series 11, Episode 4. Is it a little overhated? Maybe, but it does contain the worst line of dialogue in the entire show, which is the Donald Trump line. This is the moment when I realised Doctor Who had gone from political satire to just parody of itself. It was parodying itself, parodying something else, which is kind of bizarre. I think it's not a very good episode. The effects are garbage, and the Doctor has some really weird moral... Why is Jodie's Doctor so weirdly immoral? That sounds kind of strange, but she wants not to kill the giant big spider, because it's cruel. Number 168, The Lazarus Experiment, Series 3, Episode 6. This was originally a lot lower on my list, but upon a little revisitation, I don't think it's that awful. Do you know why? I just love the Scorpion King effect. I think it's so funny that Doctor Who had a collab with The Rock Scorpion King. It's a really bad episode, because it's... I need to explain this. It's terrible. Skip it, it doesn't matter except for the Saxon storyline, but it's just the Scorpion King in Doctor Who, and it's brilliant. Number 167, The Power of Three, Series 7, Episode 4. To be honest, many people will tell you this is the best Chibs episode, but to be honest, it's borderline perhaps the worst. Because, I mean, how do you release an ending that unfinished? The Doctor waves his magic space wand around a panel, and then the day is saved, and then flipping the Emperor of Cubes disappears a few minutes before that for no reason. A talking propaganda puppet. Yeah, whatever, Matt Smith, who cares? Anyway, if you dislike the sonic screwdriver in the modern era, this is the perfect example of it, and why Chibs has no idea how to utilise it in a way that makes sense. And also, the plot makes absolutely no sense, and upon a little bit of brain power, it completely falls apart, so it's got that going for it too, I guess. Number 166, The Wedding of River Song, Series 6, Episode 13. Considering that you have probably the most complicated series arc of all time in Series 6, the fact that they chose to resolve it with just one episode, and yet the Ganga story gets 2 episodes, is kind of crazy. This episode feels so rushed, considering they had 45 minutes to wrap up this insanely convoluted and ridiculously complex story that had no business being this difficult to understand, but here we are, I guess. So, what's my overall grade of this? I mean, I do kind of enjoy some of the aesthetics with the mixing of modern day and ancient times and time going buggering itself and sticking its finger up its butt. Wait, what? But other than that, it's just a mess and does not wrap the story up well at all. Number 165. The Lie of the Land, Series 10, Episode 8. An awful conclusion to the Monk trilogy, and let me just say it, just as Davis did, fuck Bill's mum. Yeah, that's it, guys. Nothing more to say. It's just awful. And the regeneration fake out seriously sucks arse. Number 164. Victory of the Daleks, Series 5, Episode 3. I used to actually really like this one, but my reasons for hating it are kind of ridiculous and nitpicky, but I just hate the Dalek big purple, but they're not even purple, what the fuck, redesigns. The big, bright, cancerous, multicoloured Morg's thumbnail Daleks, I hate them so much, they ruined the whole show. Although this episode did have one of my favourite ever designs for a Dalek, which is the Ironside Dalek. Those things look seriously sick. And they're also another really rushed and unfinished ending, and the Doctor is weird, although he does kind of hate the Daleks, which is kind of a rarity in Moffat's era for some reason. But overall, I just don't like it for petty fanboy reasons. It's not an awful episode, but again, petty Doctor Who fans, I hate Doctor Who fans so much. Number 163, Orphan 55, Series 12, Episode 3. This is like the most infamous episode of the modern era, probably like down there with The Timeless Children, but I actually kind of like it. I mean, it's awful, yeah, but it's kind of borderline parody of itself. It's a parody of Chibnall Doctor Who, and it's so incredibly watchable. If we were grading all these episodes, all 177 of them, just on watchability, this would be number 1, because you could put this on no matter what state you're in and have an absolute blast with it. It is borderline next level. It's a masterpiece in entertainment. It is so fantastic. It's so awful. And if I ever do another, like, remastered version of this list, there's a big chance I'd probably put this in number 1. Part 3, The Bad Tier. These episodes are, well, bad, ranging from a 3 to a 4 out of 10. However, they do have some redeeming elements, some characters or some concepts that I do really like, and they often peak at mediocrity. However, I don't think they're completely awful, and I would say they are overall enjoyable episodes, even if they are, like, when you actually look at them in a qualitative manner, they are bad episodes and not particularly very good, but I'll elaborate more as we go on. Number 162, The End of Time Part 1, 2009 Christmas Special. You know, The End of Time Part 2 is going to appear a lot further up this list, so let's just get this out of the way. Part 1 is really weird. It's really cringe. Like, John Sims Master, he gets a lot of hate, and I think a lot of it is undeserved, but just going off this, yeah, I totally get if you hate this guy. However, I do think that woman with Wilf, I think that's rather an interesting, kind of creepy idea, and it's kind of, it's never developed in Part 2, even though Part 2 is, like, far superior. And then the Doctor is just a weird arsehole in this one, like, saying, oh, I don't want to die, and some other guy goes off with my face. Not literally, but you know what I mean. And I feel like that's a lot of the reason why Doctor Who's never really gone back to the heights that it ever was at this point, because of stuff like that. It's just really moopy, and considering that he's coming back now, it just feels really, well, cringy in a way. But yeah, not particularly good, not particularly strong. Just watch a summary on YouTube. Number 161, Kablam, Series 11, Episode 7. This is Chibnall's politics at their very worst. Sort of neoliberal capitalism. That when this show is called woke, I don't understand how you can watch this episode and say, yeah, this show is really woke. Because it ends up siding with Amazon and saying that the workers that want to do something about the way they're treated are the ones in the wrong. The Doctor sides with the big, large, evil corporation. I mean, actually, it's not a bad episode. Like, it's actually one of the more entertaining ones in Series 11. But the fact that the overall message is that Amazon are in the right is what really brings this one down for me. Number 160, Nightmare in Silver. It's just not very good, really. Oh, damn, hold on. Yeah, sorry, but I forgot to say Nightmare in Silver is Series 7, Episode 12. That's how little I care. Number 106... Number 159, Revolution of the Daleks, 2021 New Year's Day Special. I think this is, like, an okay episode, but it has Donald Trump, B-Tech Donald Trump's in it, and he's really cringe and I can't stand him. And what could have potentially been one of the most fascinating arcs ever with the Doctor in prison goes nowhere. I'm pretty sure that's Sharda, actually, but whatever. That goes nowhere. Captain Jack's there just to bait people into still giving a shit at this point. The whole time this child thing is brushed over, and Graham and Ryan, yeah, their departure's okay, I guess, but overall it's just average chibs, really. Number 158, The Snowmen, 2012 Christmas Special. The Christmas specials in Doctor Who don't exactly have the best reputation. I'm convinced that The Snowmen is part of that. I mean, I think that it would have been more interesting if we had actually kept Victoria and Clara as the main companion throughout Series 7, and perhaps going into the next era, because I'm so sick of how every single Doctor Who companion has to be a young hot girl from the modern day. Do you remember in the classic series when the Doctor literally travelled with anyone imaginable? Robots, Scottish Highlanders, scientists from the future. Why can't we go back to that? This would have been so cool and interesting. I mean, Richard E. Grant's okay as the Great Intelligence, but it's just such a waste of potential, because she had the potential to be the best companion, and Series 7 Clara is such an annoying fucking brat. I can't stand her. Number 157, Fear Her, Series 2, Episode 11. This is one of the most hated episodes of the entire show, and I've just got to say, yeah, it is really that bad. Not much else to say, but it's kind of funny. Number 156, The Crimson Horror, Series 7, Episode 12, I think. I'm not checking. Yeah, I used to really like this one, but I've kind of come around to kind of hating it now. I think it's really cringe, even though the great Diana Rigg does a pretty good job in it. And Mr. Sweet. You know what? I don't know why I ever liked this one. This one can bugger right off. Number 155, Planet of the Dead, 2009 Easter Special. I don't know. It's just really boring. Yeah, that's what I got to say. It's just really boring. Number 154, The Name of the Doctor, Series 7, Episode 13. This makes the same mistake as Series 6 in trying to end one of the most complex and multi-layered season arcs with one episode. Series 7B had like no two-parters, but you could have... Come on, guys, it's... Moffat, what is your thing? When you write some of the most complex and convoluted arcs in television and you decide to conclude it with a one-part finale, when you could have easily given it 2 parts and it would have been so much better. I mean, I do like a lot of the aesthetics with the TARDIS in this one, but no, literally, there is no conclusion. Like, the conclusion made no sense in Series 6, but this one, there's literally no conclusion. The Doctor just jumps in, which it was said he can't do, saves Clara, and then everything's fine in the next episode. Like, he'd written himself into a corner, so he just said, screw it, I'm just going to ignore the whole thing that happened. But it is kind of entertaining in places, I guess. Number 153, The Return of Dr. Mysterio, 2016 Christmas Special. You know, I wish Doctor Who would do more superhero collabs, but this isn't very good. Number 152, The Bells of St. John, Series 7, Episode 6. Wi-Fi is the villain. Yeah. Number 151, The Rings of Akaten, Series 7, Episode 7. Also known as, the Doctor uses his magic space wand and then Clara defeats a giant planet with a leaf. Yeah, this is Doctor Who, by the way. Number 150, The Long Game, Series 1, Episode 7. Well, it had to happen at some point. I guess Series 1 had to appear at some point on this list. And you know what? The Long Game isn't particularly a terrible episode. I mean, it does have Simon Pegg in it and a giant jelly monster in the ceiling. God, I love Doctor Who. I mean, it's just particularly boring, and for some reason it seems obsessed with Adam Mitchell, nobody's favourite Doctor Who companion right there. But, I mean, Series 1 is one of the best series of television I've ever seen, and even though this is like the worst of the whole season and not particularly good, it's still not that bad. Number 149, The Battle of Ranskoor av Kolos, Series 11, Episode 10. Yeah, I know a lot of you think I'm crazy putting this above a Series 1 episode, but I kind of like a lot of the aesthetics in this. Yes, again, a series that concludes with one part, but Series 11 didn't even have an overarching story, so I guess I can forgive it this once. And I don't understand how you can call an episode The Battle of Ranskoor av Kolos, then the battle takes place off-screen, like, hours before the episode even starts. I know there's technically 2, but whatever. The Yuks are kind of an interesting idea, and the half-assed attempt to give Graham some sort of growth with the Doctor. And you know when the 13th Doctor's offenders point to this and they say, oh look, she has an arc, see, she's very stern and tells Graham, don't kill that guy. Yeah, as if no other Doctor would ever do that. I mean, come on, guys. Number 148, In the Forest of the Night, Series 8, Episode 10. Series 8 is probably my most underrated series of the entire revival, but this episode is just not very good. It's another one of those weird, preachy Doctor Who episodes, but like, it has really weird morals again. I don't know, Doctor Who has such a weird moral compass when you think about it, because in this one, the Doctor says, hey kid that needs medication because of mental health issues, don't take your medication. Yeah, this is real, I'm not making it up. Don't watch it though, just take my word for it. Number 147, Ascension of the Cybermen, Series 12, Episode 9. Considering it comes right before the absolute worst episode of not only the revival, but probably the entire TV show, all 60 years of it, it's kind of crazy that this episode isn't actually that awful. It's not very good, but it did kind of have some interesting setup that left me kind of curious to see what the Timeless Children would bring, and, well, we all know how that turned out. It's kind of entertaining in places, so you can't hate on it that much, but it's not particularly outstanding either. Number 146, Fugitive of the Jadoon, Series 12, Episode 5. This episode is really overrated, but it kind of made me realise that I kind of wish Jo Martin had been cast as the 13th Doctor instead of Jodie Whittaker. No offence to Jodie, who I love, but she was just dealt a really bad hand and wasn't written very well. But Jo Martin instantly had that kind of charisma, and it's like Chris could write Jo Martin's Doctor so well in a couple of scenes, and he couldn't even give Jodie a single character beat that wasn't unique to any other Doctor across 3 entire seasons and multiple specials, but he could give that to Jo in like a couple minutes. Chris Chibnall is like the definition of a mystery box of a writer. You just don't understand how the guy works, but yeah, it's fine. It's probably not as bad as I think it is, but it's here for now, I guess. Number 145, The Woman Who Lived, Series 9, Episode 6. This probably should be a little lower, and I probably should paraphrase that most of the bad tier is all one massive ranking, because, come on, most of these episodes are about the same. The order might juggle from day to day, but this is the rough order for now. And yeah, I probably regret putting this one as high as I have, but yeah, it's fine. Arya Stark's in it, so skip it though. Number 144, The Magician's Apprentice, Series 9, Episode 1. The beginning to Series 9, which is again one of the most convoluted and messy series of all time, is not particularly strong. I think The Witch's Familiar is the far stronger of the 2 episodes, but I don't know, man, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, the production in this one's not particularly strong either, it's just not very good in general, but you know what it is, it's Doctor Who. It's not like it's been number 1 Game of Thrones level of production value or anything. Number 143, Hell Bent, Series 9, Episode 12. This is also regarded by many to be the worst finale in the entire show, and many will also tell you it's arguably the worst episode of the entire show. Obviously, I don't think it's that bad, and I think to a lot of people I probably pissed them off so much they're probably writing a whole paragraph as to why Hellbent's the worst episode ever. Come on, guys, it's not that bad. I mean, it has the biggest wasted potential in Doctor Who history. You have the Doctor return to Gallifrey and not do anything. I will say, though, the scene with Rassilon and the firing squad is one of the best scenes in the entire show, and you can't change my mind even if you hate this film so much. Look, it's not very good, and it does not explain the hybrid storyline at all, which is one of the dumbest ideas in the whole show. But is it as bad as the Timeless Children? Is it as bad as the Vanquishers? Is it as bad as the Power of the...
Spoilers.
Well, no. Just revisit it, and compared to the garbage we've been forced down our throats, thanks Chris, it's probably not as bad as you remember. Number 142, Knock Knock, Series 10, Episode 4. This episode is the definition of mid. Nothing else to say on this one. Number 141, and 140, a double bill. The Rebel Flesh and the Almost People, Series 6, Episodes 4 and 5. Okay, we're at the first double bill because I literally could not pick between these 2 episodes. Just so you know, these episodes is a 2-parter, meaning that they're the same story split into 2 parts. And half the time the 2 episodes, they're mostly equal, and yeah, sometimes I can decide when one part is obviously superior to the other, but these episodes are both pretty weak, and I just couldn't decide. I think I'd probably give the edge to the Almost People, because at least there's a little more action in it. But overall, it's just a really strange idea that didn't really go anywhere, and the setting in this one was particularly stale and boring. But it wasn't a bad idea in concept with the gangers, but I don't feel that they really utilised the concept as well as they should have. But I just can't pick between these 2 episodes, they're just exactly equal for me. But they are a 2-parter, just need to paraphrase that again, so yeah. Number 139, The Lodger, Series 5, Episode 11. It has James Corden in it, otherwise known as Britain's worst export. But it's not the worst thing he's ever been in. Number 138, World War III, Series 1, Episode 5. Yeah, another series 1, and to be honest, I think if I ever redid this list, I'd definitely put this one below The Long Game. It's definitely the worst of series 1. I mean, it's not right now, but you know what I mean. I think this one kind of wastes the whole Slitheen concept. I think Aliens of London is kind of an underrated episode, and I'll get more into that later. But this one really wasn't that, interesting. And I think the whole finale of the Doctor making Mickey hack a website so that a nuke blows up Down Street, yeah, it's Doctor Who, but come on, it's a bit ridiculous. And then the Slitheen are just taken out by a missile in the end. And I don't really have any meaningful critique of this, I just don't think it's particularly a good episode overall. Number 137, Eve of the Daleks, 2022 New Year's Day special. Probably the best of Chibnall's Dalek trilogy other than Resolution. I kind of enjoyed a lot of this, particularly the one location isolation of it, which goes back to Doctor Who's bottle episode Roots Like Breaking Bad's Fly, for example. But to be honest, I kind of enjoyed a lot of this episode, particularly the whole machine gun the Dalek has. That's the best thing in it. Yeah, it's alright. Well, it's in the bad tier though, I guess, so it's not that good. Number 136, The Witchfinders, Series 11, Episode 8. Another episode that I used to really like, but now I don't think is particularly good. Just let me tell you what this story is about, and just tell me what you think. A female doctor in the witch trials. That's exactly as bad as you imagined it would be, but 10 times worse. Number 135, Let's Kill Hitler, Series 6, Episode 8. Yeah, another one that I used to think was a terrible episode, but since then I've kind of come to reevaluate. It ties into the whole Mel storyline, which makes no bloody sense. But I wouldn't say this episode is absolutely awful, because I do enjoy a lot of the action, particularly the stuff with River Song running out of 2 guns, and the Sonic Cade is alright. And the Tessellect is introduced for the Deus Ex Machina in the finale, so yeah, not the worst, but not particularly great either. Number 134, The Doctor's Daughter, Series 4, Episode 6. Yes, Series 4, which is probably the best series of the entire show, has its first appearance on this list, and yes, this is what I would say is the only bad episode of Series 4, which just goes to show you how good Series 4 is, because the only bad episode isn't even that awful. I do enjoy the Hath, actually, they're quite an interesting design, and it did mean that Georgia Tennant and David Tennant met and got married, so I guess that's good, I suppose. But other than that, it's just really cringe, but the Doctors give a good speech at the end, so I guess it was all worth it for another fantastic David Tennant speech. Dutch. Number 133, Asylum of the Daleks, Series 7, Episode 1. This is one of my favourite Dalek stories, or at least it used to be, but now I kind of reevaluate it, as the twist at the end, particularly with Oswald, I don't think it really works as well as they thought it would. But I don't hate this one, and it's worth a watch, particularly for the cool classic Dalek designs that show up. I particularly enjoy those. Number 132, Smile, Series 10, Episode 2. This is the definition of a 4 out of 10 episode. Every time you say to me, what's a 4 out of 10 episode in Doctor Who? I'll say, yeah, Smile. Because it has quite an interesting idea. It's kind of cringe in Gen Z though, not gonna lie. But then it's all done with, guess what, a magic button that rewinds time and just fixes the day. Looking at you, last of the Time Lords.
What? What? What?
Part 4, the OK tier. These episodes aren't all entirely bad, and I'd say these range from 5 out of 10 to maybe a 6 out of 10. I mostly enjoy all these episodes, and none of them are a bad time, and I'd say only 1 or 2 I'd describe as boring, and that's probably the worst criticism you can have for an episode of Doctor Who, if I'm being completely honest. I think the best way to sum up this tier though is just mid. It's okay, it's fine, it's passable, not particularly outstanding, but not the worst episode in the world, so yeah. Number 131, Survivors of the Flux, Series 13, Episode 5. I used to like this one more than I do now, but in retrospect I've kind of gone back on it a little bit. I think it's a little the setup isn't really there. I mean, it does set up a little bit, but considering The Vanquishers is probably the worst episode of the entire show, I mean, you have to blame this episode to somewhat of a degree, because this one failed to set up for that one, so this one is partially responsible for that one being the massive stinking pile of horse manure that it was. So, I mean, yeah, the whole thing with Yaz and Dan, it's kind of cringy. It's the kind of thing Chris would do, because he thinks, oh look, I'm so smart, I'm using the time travel mechanic to interestingly incorporate into the stories. Where's my Mountain Dew? You know what I mean? But it's not the worst, and the setup with Unit was okay, but they completely squandered it and then forgot about it in The Power of the Doctor because Christian has no idea what the fuck he's doing, so why was he even the fucking show want to start? Bah! Number 130, Rosa, Series 11, Episode 3. I feel like this was kind of the parody of the Chibnall era, and laughably it used to be one of my favourites, but it's kind of what this era became, you know, the bastion of the woke mob in the anti-SJW sphere. But to be honest, I don't think it's a particularly awful episode either, but its whole critique of fascism and racism is really, really poor, and it doesn't really go anywhere, and do you remember when Ryan just shoots the bad guy and literally no one cares? And, I mean, but the real cringy part is that they play a flipping Ava Max pop song. I don't know if it was Ava Max, but all modern artists sound the same, let's be real. At the very end, as Rosa stands up, it's the most cringe Gen Z stuff I've ever seen. But it's so funny that it kind of makes the episode like one of the best episodes of the entire show, because we all forgot about that, right? They literally played a modern pop song as Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. Doctor Who actually did this. Good nice one, Chris. Number 129, The Tusaranga Conundrum, Series 11, Episode 5. Yeah, I don't even know if it's called The Tusaranga Conundrum, I'm just presuming that stupid word is pronounced like that. Again, this one was quite a hated one, but I don't know, I thought it was alright. The Pating was actually one of the more interesting original ideas from Chris's era. There weren't many of those, but meh. But I feel it was also kind of a bad stereotype of what your weird mate thinks Doctor Who is. You know that one jock that, you know, he's like, oh, Doctor Who's such a loser, gay virgin show. And then he watches an episode with the Pating, and that would just confirm his thoughts about the entire show. I mean, it doesn't exactly help the image of the show, if you know what I mean, but it's kind of an interesting creative idea, but the budget cuts with, oh, there's nothing to steer the spaceship. I mean, it's just a little silly, and the title is like, it's awful. Number 128, The Ghost Monument, Series 11, Episode 2. Despite having perhaps the coolest title of the entire show, this one isn't particularly eventful. I mean, I think I used to like this one a lot more than I do now, but it has some of the worst sonic screwdriver use, and Ryan saying that he played Call of Duty, so it trained him to shoot robots with laser guns. Again, if you saw that and then you said, I don't think I'm ever going to watch an episode of Doctor Who in my life again, I probably wouldn't blame you. I'd probably help you cancel your BBC iPlayer subscription if I had to. But other than that, it's just them searching for the TARDIS in a generic kind of bland sci-fi world, but it's not really the worst episode ever. And I do get quite a lot of enjoyment out of some of the ideas. I kind of wish that the Tribune was a bit more like this, and the opening is quite engaging and snappy, I guess, but that's about it really. Number 127, Resolution, 2019 New Year's Day Special. I used to like this one a lot more, but it's kind of gone down a bit on my estimation. However, I do kind of like the way the Daleks were presented in this one. The casing was kind of a cool, unique design, but then they sort of just turned it into more uniformity in Revolution of the Daleks, then it completely disappeared again, so yeah, I guess. I didn't mind it too much, so I thought it was an alright design. The Daleks, their presentation here is okay, but I remember all the fan theories around this when it was coming out saying, what's the monster going to be? And I was like, yeah, it's obviously a Dalek. Because remember, Chibnall did not have a single returning monster or villain in Series 11, because he's just so smart, I guess. Number 126 and 125, a double bill. The Power of the Doctor, 2022, Regeneration Special, and The Woman Who Fell to Earth, Series 11, Episode 1. Yeah, I think this might be the last double bill in the series, but I thought it'd be kind of fitting. The 13th Doctor's first ever episode and her last ever episode. I was kind of debating which one to put above, and I think I kind of have more fun with The Power of the Doctor, but I think The Woman Who Fell to Earth is slightly better constructed. I mean, what else can I say? But these two episodes are what I'd say, in their core DNA, they're the best of the Chibnall era because they're fun and quite engaging. But when you actually start to analyse them, they don't really mean anything, and they're absolutely awfully constructed, and they fall apart under basically any scrutiny. But actually, on the face of it, they're really entertaining episodes and ones that you can really get along with, and I just thought it'd be fitting to put her first and last stories on a double bill because, I mean, they're kind of the best of Chibs. I mean, when he's at his best, he's not amazing, but for me personally, his best stuff is when he just has screw making any sense, screw logic, let's just have a crazy, weird, wacky Doctor Who time. And to be honest, I know I criticise the guy a lot, but it's pretty good, you know? You do have fun with the guy, and even though his era of Doctor Who is like the worst up there with JNT's, but, you know, even RTD had his bad days, I guess. That doesn't really make any sense, but you know what I mean. We have to appreciate the little things where we can, and even though Chibs left the show in a far worse state than it was when he entered it, I think that at least we got some really fun, entertaining episodes out of it. Number 124, Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS, Series 7, Episode... let me check. Shit. Episode 10. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, this is probably the best episode of Series 7B, which is down there as one of the worst seasons of the show along with Chib's efforts. But yeah, I think this one's kind of fun in many ways, but the whole Impossible Girl arc really comes into it heavy, and I kind of cringe every time I have to look at it.
Impossible Girl.
And I kind of find some of the concepts with these guys robbing the TARDIS kind of interesting, and yeah, I think this is one of the only good episodes of Series 7B, and I mean, it's not good though, it's just fine, but and by good I mean it's enjoyable. Number 123, Once Upon Time, Series 13, Episode 3. This was actually my least favourite episode of Flux until a little re-evaluation, when I've come to realise that Once Upon Time ain't really that bad. In fact, I kind of like this episode now. It's kind of crazy and doesn't really progress the story in any way, but I like when Doctor Who gets weird, you know. Not a failed BBC experiment like Sleep No More, but when it kind of pushes things a little weird, like a crazy trip through psychedelic time zones on a planet sentient with time. I mean, what other sci-fi world could do that? Like, this is why I love Doctor Who so much. Like, Star Wars is awesome and all, but like, you would never see something like this happen in Star Wars. That's what makes Doctor Who so special, and once again, it is Chibs, but, you know, I like when he kind of experiments like this. I mean, it doesn't entirely work, and it's not a particularly good episode, but it's a really fun time at the end of the day, and just a really creative story. Number 122, The Halloween Apocalypse, Series 13, Episode 1. I was contemplating switching these two around, but I think I've settled like this. I think this one does quite a good job of introducing the season. I think someone once said it quite well. Chris Chibnall should write first episodes for his entire career and then not write anything else, because he is actually quite good at delivering promising setup. And by the way, I don't know why I've been praising Chibnall so much on these last few entries, but I mean, I've got to give him some praise. The poor sod doesn't get much. But I think this episode does quite a good job of setting things up and getting me intrigued in it. But I obviously knew setting out that there was no way Chris would ever satisfy us to deliver interesting answers, because he never does. But at least he tries. Well, no, he doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, he's good with setting things up and, you know, getting me intrigued in what he's doing. But he's just not very good at answering those questions or delivering satisfying pay-up. And let me just say, Carvanista, bloody legend. He's a bloody legend. Bloody love that guy. Number 121, The Big Bang, Series 5, Episode 13. Yeah, this is one of my more hot takes, but I don't think the Series 5 finale is all that good. I find it to be a bit of a stuffed up runaround, but I think it gets really, really stellar in its last few minutes. But the whole stuff in the museum is like Moffat kind of at his worst, if you ask me. It's not as bad as Series 6 or 7 convoluted, but it does kind of push it. But I do, you know, I really got excitement out of it, and, you know, especially how timey-wimey it gets, and it's so cleverly constructed, Series 5. I feel like people bash a bit on Series 5 these days, but it is really clever how Moffat constructs it, and just this finale really makes you appreciate the finer details and the work. Like, Series 5 is so well crafted, and it's clear it was so finely planned out, and compared to something like Series 6, which was so messy, and they tried to one-up themselves and top the insane, fantastic storyline in Series 5, and it just didn't really work. But even though I don't think The Big Bang is like a stellar episode, as a conclusion to the arc, I think it's absolutely fantastic and does quite a good job of tying the whole thing up and setting up the arcs that would come to later, you know, emerge within the show in Series 6. Number 120, The Unquiet Dead, Series 1, Episode 3. This is another okay episode. I know it sounds like I'm putting Series 1 too low, but trust me, when we get to the S tier, things are going to pick up. I think this episode is the definition of a Mark Gatiss episode, because it's fine. It's utterly fine. Charles Dickens is interesting. The Gelth are fine. Everything in this episode is utterly okay. Number 119, Face the Raven, Series 9, Episode 10. This was a last minute switch with Unquiet Dead, but I think I prefer this one a bit. What I really like about this one is the fact that I thought for a minute Clara was actually gone, and her death does kind of have an impact. I wasn't the biggest fan of Clara in Series 9. I think that she was really good in Series 8, but Series 9 Clara wasn't the best, but I think her ending here was really good until Hellbent, when that all went out the window. But I don't mind this episode, actually, and there's some pretty interesting stuff with, the Raven and Trap Street, but Ashilda is such a weirdly placed character in this series, and I don't think her inclusion really works here. But I think the reason I put this above Unquiet Dead is because it's just a little more of a fun time, I guess. And at the end of the day, as much as I love the amazingly crafted, perfectly put together, seamless plots and scripts and characters of Doctor Who, I go to Doctor Who for a good time. At the end of the day, I go there to be entertained, and sometimes the entertainment factor just kind of overcomes. It might be a little inferior to others, but I know, it depends how you rate things, I suppose. Number 118, Aliens of London, Series 1, Episode 4. This is what I'd say is a little underrated. Many people would say this is the weakest of Series 1. Don't know what happened there. But I think it's a pretty good episode, actually. I really enjoyed the dynamic with Nine and Jackie. What a sexy duo. And that's about it, really. But the pig's pretty cool, and I like the Slickeen. Number 117, Hyde, Series 7, Episode 9. This actually used to be one of my favourites, but upon a little bit of an inspection, I think it's a cluttered mess of ideas that don't really add up to anything. But I really think it's quite a spooky episode, and I love it when Doctor Who gets scary. One of my biggest wishes for RTD2 is that he really brings back the scariness to Doctor Who. And my pitch for adapting Doctor Who into a movie, Hyde would actually be one of the movies I would try to adapt, because I think it perfectly sums up the spooky side of Doctor Who. I might even push for a 15 rating, to be honest, but I think this could really work in a film adaptation, like make it really spooky, like go on, and it is really quite scary at points, actually. Like, I think it really works when it works, but it doesn't really mean anything. It ends up being quite a cluttered mess, despite it really having some strong moments. Number 116, Boomtown, Series 1, Episode 11. I think this one has maybe come a little too high on my list, but Margaret the Farting Slickeen's pretty funny, but yeah, it's fine. I think it's a little overhated at times, but I do kind of like the introduction of the time vortex, but Chris obviously completely ignored that idea. Thanks a lot, Chris. Not much else to say on it though, really. I mean, it's a fine episode. I have fun with it every time I watch it. It's just not particularly, stellar. Number 115, Rise of the Cybermen, Series 2, Episode 5. I don't think this episode is particularly strong, but I think it is a perfect, and I mean pitch perfect, introduction of the Cybermen into the modern Doctor Who era. Not quite as strong as Dalek was in the previous series, but I think this is a really solid episode. And the Cybermen are some seriously underrated Cybermen, and I think they really work for the modern era, and I think RTD just really got how to update these guys for the modern audiences, and even though the design isn't like my favourite Cyberman design, they do really work. And even though this episode isn't like particularly outstanding, like I've said, it's fine, but it really introduced these modern audiences to, in my opinion, arguably the best Doctor Who monster of all time. So yeah, it is quite a strong episode in that regard. Number 114, Cold War, Series 7, Episode 7. This used to be another one of my all-time favourites, like Hyde, but it's kind of gone down a bit. Mainly because I really love the Ice Warriors, and I think they've really been done dirty, but luckily Empress of Mars in Series 10 would really bring them back. But why have they not been brought back, man? They're such a cool monster. They look so fucking cool, man. They're so, like, the design, they look like flipping robot soldier lizards, crocodiles. How cool is that? Like, Chris, you bring the you bring the Pating in, but you can't bring an Ice Warrior in. These guys are so cool. And once again, this episode did quite introduce them quite well, even though we should never assume they're like under the mask. What the fuck are you on about, Mark Gatiss? Number 113, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, Series 12, Episode 4. Yeah, this one's pretty cool. I like some of the aesthetics with the, 1800s Doctor battling big Scorpion King woman with old tech. Nikola Tesla's there, the guy who made the light bulbs there, and Silurian guns there, and yeah, it's alright. Number 112, The Girl Who Died, Series 9, Episode 5. yeah, I know to a lot of people I put this one way too high, but I think it's quite a fun time. Even though it's not particularly like a strong episode in the writing department and the whole prank is really stupid. And actually, this is a weird side note, but there's so many continuity mistakes in this one. I think there's been a YouTube video pointing it out, but in that scene where they're being squashed into that metal compactor, there's so many mistakes. And the rushed production of Series 9 really comes through in this one. But the ending is kind of awful, with the whole Doctor, I know why I got this face, please, no, God, no. But up until that point, it's quite a fun Viking adventure that doesn't provide much insight into any of the characters, but it's passable, I suppose. Number 111, The Christmas Invasion, 2005 Christmas Special. You know, I think I need to put this one a little bit higher next time, because it was the first ever Christmas special that started this whole thing. And despite what you may think about Christmas specials, they're fun. Come on, who hates Christmas? Everyone loves Christmas. I mean, and the Christmas specials, despite not being particularly strong episodes, they are good in the sense they, you know, give you that warm Christmas feeling and entertain you. So, I don't think they're that bad. But this episode isn't particularly strong, particularly in its later half, although I do quite enjoy the duel with the... Oh, fuck, what's he called? The blood guy, the... Hold on a minute. The Sycorax, that's it. I had to remember that one. Yeah, that, and the Doctor losing his hand, which then becomes a massive plot, and seriously, and it becomes a really important plot, and then creating the meta. Oh, shit, my brain just blew up. Damn. Number 110, The Curse of the Black Spot, Series 6, Episode 3. You know, when people say that pirate stories don't have a particularly good track record on Doctor Who, this is probably what they're talking about. This is a really silly, swashbuckling episode, and yet again, it's not particularly good for the reputation of Doctor Who, but if you're already an invested superfan like me, then it's not going to turn you off or anything, so it is a really fun story in that regard, and I know I always have fun with it if I'm being completely honest. Number 109, Voyage of the Damned, 2007 Christmas Special. Yeah, I think this one's a little bit overrated. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy it, but I find it just kind of cheesy and a bit, well, silly. I do enjoy some of the action, particularly the part where they have to move all the way up the ship, which does get a bit tedious after a while, if I'm being honest, but it's still a really fun story. And yeah, I like the story, but it's not particularly amazing, and I think there are way better Christmas specials out there. Number 108, Twice Upon a Time, 2017 Christmas Special. Yeah, I used to dislike this one, but I don't know, I kind of come to like it now. I just think it's kind of interesting how the previous Moffat finale had the 11th Doctor fighting literally everyone on planet Earth, and now his final one and Capaldi's final episode is him fighting no one. And Rusty's reappearance was like, I cheered. But I don't like the ending. I don't like how Moffat writes regeneration scenes for the most part. Like, Eccleston's regeneration, and Ten's to a lesser extent, but, you know, they're amazing, and I think Eccleston's has the best regeneration of any Doctor. But it's just so annoying that when he gives big speeches, like, Moffat thinks for it to be cool and impactful, they have to give a long, bloody, shit, waffly speech. No one gives a pardon my French. No one gives one about. Number 107, A Good Man Goes to War, Series 6, Episode 7. This is kind of like Avengers Infinity War. Actually, no, The Stolen Earth is Avengers Infinity War. This is like the slightly weaker version, but it is kind of cool, actually. Seeing all these different characters from across the earlier parts of the era come together, and some new characters as well to fight these headless monks. But the episode does feel a little bit like... It doesn't really feel like a Doctor Who episode. It feels like kind of unfocused and muddled, and like... It just doesn't feel like Doctor Who. It's like Andor for Star Wars, right? It's kind of... I can't explain it. It just doesn't feel like Doctor Who. It feels like some other franchise, but... Yeah, it's okay. The ending is a really good twist reveal of River Song being Melody Pond, which gets kind of weird when you realise that Doctor marries her, but... Oh, more on that later. Anyway, yeah, it's a fun story. Not much else to say on it, really, but it's really weird. Number 106, Evolution of the Daleks, Series 3, Episode 5. Yeah, it's really silly, and Dalek sex death, it hurts, man. Oh yeah, Andrew Garfield's in it. Spider-Man. Number 105, The Zygon Invasion, Series 9, Episode 7. Yeah, the parallels to the refugees and to the Syrian war, they're pretty, like, obvious, but that's not necessarily a problem. Other than that, yeah, it's not a particularly good episode, although the bit where Clara blows up the airplane's pretty cool, I guess, but it's no Terror of the Zygons. Number 104, The Witch is Familiar, Series 9, Episode 2. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about putting this one a bit lower, but I don't know, I kind of like the conversations between the Doctor and Davros, but yeah, it's a bit of a shit story. Number 103, The Pyramid at the End of the World, Series 10, Episode 7. Used to like this one a lot more, but I've kind of gone down a bit on it now. Yes, the Doctor's blind reveal with the monks, it's very cool and all, but no, it's kind of silly that the monks want people to consent to take over the world. The whole concept of the episode is kind of dumb and stupid when you actually kind of think about it. Number 102 and 101, Spyfall Parts 1 and 2, 2019 and 2020. Ugh, man. Yes, I like this story and it's one of Jodie's better ones, but it's not a particularly strong overall outing. I think that 1 is superior, but 2 has far more interesting locations, but it's kind of morally and racially a bit dodgy when you actually think about it. The Master being a Nazi officer in Paris is a bit... it's a bit dodgy. Don't tell Twitter, though. Number 100. Yes! New Earth, Series 2, Episode 1. Used to really hate this one, and I mean really hate it, because it contains, like, the worst Rose bits, but it's kind of good, actually. You know, I kind of grown to like Series 2 Rose. Wait, what? I didn't mean that. No, delete that! Yeah, I do kind of like it now, and it's a really horny episode for some reason. I don't know why RTD got so horny when writing it, but yeah, it's a good episode, and I mean, it's not good, but it's, you know, it doesn't deserve the hate it gets, even though the cats are really stupid, but, you know, there could be worse episodes out there. Number 99, Death in Heaven, Series 8, Episode 12. Not as good as the previous episode or the fantastic series that it's from, but I'll take it, and the final reveal of I'm an idiot is brilliant. Pete Capaldi. Number 98, Bad Wolf, Series 1, Episode 12. This is nothing compared to the episode that comes after it, but it has what I consider to be the best cliffhanger in Doctor Who history. I mean, Nine's speech to the Daleks, what a moment, what an incredible moment. Arguably the best moment of the entire show, if I'm being honest. Number 97, War of the Sontarans, Series 13, Episode 2. One of the only actually decent Chibnall episodes, but it's still not even a good episode. It just managed to make its way onto okay. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I kind of like the Sontarans, but there's not enough battle sequences, man. How do you put Sontarans in Crimean War and not have more battle sequences? What the hell is going on with that? Number 96, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, Series 7, Episode 2. Yep, this might be my favourite Chibnall episode, actually, because it's really fun, stupid, and Chibnall-y. It has all the Chibnallisms all in one fantastic little ball. But, you know, it's not awful. Number 95, Can You Hear Me? Series 12, Episode 7. Another one I used to really dislike, but kind of come around to it a little now. I think Zellen's one of the more interesting ideas for Jodie's era, and one of the more, you know, more interesting characters. Like, Zellen's a more interesting concept of a villain than before, and I really like the whole gods idea. That's a really cool idea, but being Chibs, you set up such a crazy world-changing idea like that, and do you follow it up and evaluate on it? No, you just ignore it and forget it, and it has one of the worst endings of the entire show, and that stupid bloody werewolf is the most stupid bloody werewolf thing I've ever bloody seen. Wealth by Night is way better than this episode. Number 94, The Impossible Astronaut, Series 6, Episode 1. Probably the craziest and messiest opener to the entire show. Yeah, and it probably sets up like the worst arc, along with Clara from Series 7, but this one is, you know, I think the Series 6 arc is like the most interesting arc of the entire show, and it had the potential to be like the absolute greatest. I mean, what a cool idea. I mean, you open the series with the Doctor literally dying. It's such a brilliant way to open it, and the astronaut, it's so iconic, really. But the series as a whole is a complete catastrophe, and the final episode just, it makes no sense. But as an episode, with my optimism that I had at the time, not knowing what was to come, yeah, it's okay. Number 93, Deep Breath, Series 8, Episode 1. Yep, I'll come around to this one as well. One of my favourite series openers, actually. Really like Deep Breath. It's got a lot of cool stuff in it. Particularly Capaldi's characterisation, the setup for his arc in Series 8, and also Missy's arc, and also Clara's arc, and a lesbian Silurian kiss. It's got everything. So, yeah, this is the end of part 1 of every Doctor episode ranked. It wasn't going to be this way originally, but we've had to split it into 2 parts due to behind-the-scenes drama, which I'm not going to go into. But second part will be coming at some point in the Christmas season, maybe Christmas Day, Boxing Day, that kind of period. Not sure yet, but if you've seen the update video, you'll know all this. And yeah, guys, just hope you stick around for part 2 if you've even bothered to watch part 1.